How you guys? You guys are amazing. Only ESPN would do something like that.
All right, Richard, appreciate you coming on the show.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
They asked us to go through Game 5, Game 6, and Game 7. But one of the big moments that everyone was talking about was this moment where LeBron finds out that Klay says it's a man's game.
What did you say Klay said?
Klay said, I guess he just got his feelings hurt.
Did you guys talk about this in the locker room when it happened?
Now, it was always difficult for me because I had played with Klay and Steph and Draymond. So, and then Steve Kerr, obviously, is an Arizona guy. So I had a connection to them that not in a space, but I wasn't like anti those guys. The thing that I found ironic is that Klay got a thigh got a thigh bruise because he thought there was like somewhat of an illegal screen. And it is a man's game. Klay is true, right? But you can't say it's a man's game when it's in reference to somebody else, but then be calling a screen where you just got kneed in your thigh, you got a little thigh bruise, saying that. But no, the things like that motivate and crack jokes, I don't believe that any great player needs any extra motivation, right? Like the motivation is there. But yeah, it was definitely a moment that became a bit ironic.
But everyone points at the laugh. Like it was this big turning point where I'm not sure LeBron got tired of it, or I don't know. Everyone sticks with the laugh for some reason. But did that moment ever really stuck out for you?
No, I think, the crazy thing about the 4 straight NBA finals, that the Warriors versus the Cavs, and I was only in 2 of them. I wasn't in the first one and I wasn't in the last one, but there's just so many layers. There's so many chapters to that book. That's what makes it interesting. Like, I'm not going to say that was a turning point, but it was definitely a spot where you were like, wait, man's game? Like, I don't know if that's applied here, but to me, you're just so focused on what you need to do versus like little chirping things said before and after.
Now, I know you get asked this question a lot. Like, I know so many people ask you, did you know you were going to come back from 3-1? But I have to ask, what is your response when people ask that question?
My response is no. No one thought we thought. But you don't try and eat a big steak in one bite, right? Yeah. You really just kind of look at it from a standpoint of like, all right, we believe that we could play better. We knew we could play better. We also knew we were going against one of the great teams of all time. Teams of all time. They were a great team with great individual players. And the one thing about the Warriors versus some other teams is that you could do it right and perfect, and they could still score. Like, you could play the best defense a human being could possibly play on Steph, and he could still knock down a 30-footer with ease. And so we really we viewed it from a standpoint of this: win one, right? We believed, and still, I look back on it, we believed that if we won Game 5, that we could force Game 7. It doesn't mean that Game 6 was done. They had the year before they had beat one in Cleveland, but we believed if we won Game 5, then Game 6 was going to be a very, very difficult out, and that anything could happen in a Game 7.
What was the atmosphere like, though, in Game 5? Like, LeBron got booed super loud every time he touched the ball, but that doesn't really affect a guy like him, right?
No. This man has been booed. And you know what? Like, he had taken on that villain role, I think, after the Miami situation, as we see Livingston dunk on me.
Wait, what happened there?
What it was? It wasn't my responsibility. I came over super late, right? Like, that wasn't my responsibility. Even Bron was laughing. He was like, dude, you were in such a bad way. And I was like, dude, this is the NBA finals. This ain't time to be worried. And if you watch, I grab the ball and get that thing out quick. I'm like,
you were good. Yeah.
I was like, you didn't. I was like, this is the NBA finals. Are you worried about YouTube? Are you worried about IG and Vine? No, let's go. Okay, you dunked it. Keep it moving. back to your, original, he'd taken on that villain role after Miami. So I think the Miami part was hard for him in the beginning. And then now when it was like people are booing him and people are there, he doesn't care anymore. He had been doing that for years.
Was there anything different about Kyrie going into this game? Because he also had 41, and in the fourth quarter, he was ridiculous. Like, was there anything different about him in the locker room before the game or after the game or during the game?
You know what? I'll say this. Kyrie, his approach is always very, very direct. I think Kyrie, he fights himself more of because he knows and he has the ability to do it all at all points in time. So most of the battles for Kyrie is a little bit internal of like, hey, let me make sure I'm doing this. Let me make sure I'm making the right attacks, because Kyrie can score against anybody at any point in time, does not matter. But that's not the approach that you need to do in the NBA Finals, especially against that great defensive team. So he just had such a great pace and such a steady flow in that game, and it was beautiful.
What does Kyrie not get enough credit for as a player?
I think his mental approach to the game, right? Like Kyrie's an assassin. He is a Mamba disciple, and I think what he doesn't get enough credit for is really just his approach to the game, like how much of a student of the game. I sat behind Kyrie for 2.5 years, and all he would do is watch old video clips of Kobe, old games of Jordan. He would that's what he does. He would sit on the plane. He didn't really play cards, didn't really, he would listen to music, but more than anything, he would just be watching games, right? Not necessarily, not like, I'm talking about like of great players. That was his time. And so, obviously Kobe, talked about how after he did it, after he won the championship, he FaceTimed Kobe. But that's what he was. He's a student of the game because he has the skill set of the great ones. And so he would just approach that. And I don't think he ever got enough credit because Kyrie doesn't really talk about that stuff very much. He's very much an introvert when it comes to some of those things.
When you have two guys going off for 40 and they're going off during the game, do you just get out the way?
No. It's either, one of my favorite quotes recently that I heard is either get in front, get behind, or get out of the way. And so for this is a get behind, right? When you see that you guys have two guys cooking, our job as secondary guys is to play the best defense possible, rebound the ball every time, give up no offensive rebounds, right? Don't make any defensive mistakes because you believe offensively that your guys are rolling so that they're going to get. And again, look at Kyrie. Kyrie is 6'2" going against a 6'6" great defender in Klay. Right, great defender.
He would hit the toughest shots.
Like
Klay would be all over him, and he would hit the craziest shots.
And Klay, no one cares because you do the same thing to other people. Klay, you do the same thing. Yeah. You can play the best defense in the world, and Klay and Steph and these guys can still hit them. So obviously they're very different in their approach. But no, I think as a role player, like I stand by this. If you look at Game 7, I scored 2 points, but I had 9 rebounds, right? I had 9 rebounds in that game. And it was because it's like, all I did is like, dude, I knew scoring. If it came my way, I was going to be ready. But ultimately, one way I knew I could affect the game is to get every defensive rebound that came down, go after every offensive rebound that was appropriate. And so like, that's how would I have rather had, 9 points and 2 rebounds? Maybe. But ultimately it was like, hey, my approach was, okay, let me stay in line, and this is what our team needs.
After Game 5, though, and you talked about it a little bit, like you guys knew that you were going to be good going into Game 6.
Game 5 was the game, right?
Yeah.
Game 5 was the game that ultimately got us back in the series, right?
Yeah.
You look at it; they believed that they were going to win. Draymond was, right across the street, just waiting for everything to get done, so he believed in it. And they should. This is a team that had won a championship and won 73 games, and they believed that they were going to be up. So we look back at Game 5, and it took an epic performance. It took 41 points, first 2 teammates to ever go for that. That's what it took in order for us. And it was a close game the whole way. It wasn't like Game 3. It wasn't like Game 1 or 2. There was no real blowout. It was a battle, and it was just, again, a compliment, like to Bron and Kyrie for really just putting our team in the city on their shoulders.
Now, we talked about like the away crowd affecting LeBron or Kyrie, and that pretty much isn't a thing. But what about the home crowd? Like the place was rocking in the beginning. That was one of the first things I noticed. The energy from the crowd at home, does that help?
Oh my God. When I stand by this in all the games, like, I've been so fortunate playing at University of Arizona, playing Nets in the finals, playing I had never seen a crowd in one single game be as intense as they were. It was the last possible game that was going to be played in Cleveland. They stood up the entire time. People were in the arena. I'm talking about the arena was packed 45 minutes before the game got started, and they stood up from start to finish. It was like a college. Imagine, I don't know how many the queue holds. Let's say 20 something thousand, right? Whatever,
Yep.
20,000. Imagine a 20,000 person arena that was a student section, all students. That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
Right? You go and look at the Cameron Crazies, you go look at the Zona Zoo, you go look at Michigan State, North Carolina, where they had that student section that's rocking. Imagine that in an NBA arena, but the entire place is a student section. They stood up for 48 minutes. It was amazing.
And then, but do you think that affects the Warriors too? Like you guys feed off the energy, but do you think, because Steph was a 2-time MVP, but at that point in their career, do you think it could affect them?
No, I wouldn't say it affected them per se, but it energized us, right? I don't think it negatively affected us. And I'll stand by this. I remember when the Warriors made the postseason the first time since the We Believe team?
Yep.
Yeah. So when they made it was Steph and Klay and Dre, when they made their first postseason, I remember the crowd was far different, in my opinion, that those years, those first couple of years. I feel like their crowd, even though they had one of the best home records and they were dominant and they were awesome, their crowd was a little bit different. I think you had, the ticket prices were going a little bit high. You had a few more people that weren't those gritty fans and it supported them. Now, they were still Warrior fans, but I'm talking about, I remember going out, and as soon as I was on the team, as soon as we ran out, you would hear the Warrior chants, Warriors. And that was intimidating. And then slowly but surely, I felt not that it was lost, but it wasn't the same type of intensity. Even Klay Thompson said that a little bit ago, right?
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
Klay, so all you Warrior fans that think I'm hating, Klay Thompson said it.
I love JR because he's the only person that would throw a no-look lob during an elimination game. And I've been very lucky. I've gotten to know him over the past couple of years. The nicest guy in the world. Seriously, one of the nicest people I know.
Yes.
But what was he like during all this? Was he like the cheery guy, or was he kind of just laid back?
Honestly, and he was so important to this championship. JR had the hardest job, I think, of anybody. He was the biggest unsung hero in this thing, in my opinion. Obviously, Kyrie and Bron and these guys were studs, but JR had to, if you look at the people he had to guard, Klay and Steph, and then he would have other guys, even in the conference finals against DeMar DeRozan. Like he had a job that you could not lose focus for a quarter of a second. Yeah. And he did such a great job guarding those guys, and they were still good. But JR was, to me, and even in, not to get too forward to game 7, that stretch he had to get us
in the third quarter,
the game in the third quarter. Without that, like, we don't know. But he was, to me, the most unsung hero in that group.
That was a really good shot.
I know you know what LeBron said to Steph here. Can you tell me?
I don't know what he said. Look, you see me, my face, right? Like, you know what? I feel like for these great players like Steph and Klay and Bron, there's a level of competitiveness that Steph and Bron are competing against each other. Now, it's their teams, but ultimately they understand. And I think for Bron has always looked at it because it's always about someone taking his throne or his goal of trying to get the throne. And I think for Bron, it's always like, yo, I've been doing this for 15 years.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for 15 years, and Steph deserves all the credit, championships, MVPs. He deserves all of that, 1,000%. And I told him that, you know, after this whole thing was over, like he deserved every single great thing that has happened to him and his family. But I think for great players like Kobe and Bron and MJ, when they feel like someone's taking their throne, like you have to take it from them.
You guys would still attack Steph defensively a lot, right?
Yeah, that's why he got in foul trouble. He laughed. We were at Kent Bazemore's wedding, and I remember we were laughing and joking because we could hit Steph, right? Like if Steph would be running around, you could hip check him. You could do some stuff. And I remember one time in a video session, T. Lou goes, Richard, you got to be here on the nail, right? During this moment. And I was like, I know that. I was like, I saw Steph running through, and I left the nail and I hip checked him. And Steph, we were at dinner, and Steph was like, you're the reason why I got thrown out. He goes, that blank hurt. And I was laughing. He was like, yo, that hurt. And I was like, yeah. And so when I told T. Lou that, T. Lou was like, okay, that's fine. But any other situation, you got to be on the nail. You gotta bring that gritty. Like I saw Steph, and if Steph is running through kind of old NBA, just body check him. Don't do anything dirty or illegal, but just let him feel you. Let him know you're there. Yeah. And that was really because like that was the only way to try and slow Steph down. And then Steph had just had enough. He had just had a moment. Yeah, he had a moment. He threw his mouthpiece. Right. Yeah. And Steph is the calmest, coolest, one of the nicest teammates, one of the nicest people. But everybody, when like even here, he knew he calmed himself down. It's like, yo, I apologize, my bad. But it was still, you had to do what you had to do.
LeBron said right after this game in the locker room that they're effed up mentally and physically. Could you tell that? Like, do you think LeBron looked at like the way Steph was reacting, like, oh, we're in their heads now?
Yeah, I think those words are just given to your teammates. Obviously, that was aired after, but those words are given to your teammates just to encourage them. It's like, whoa, they know that the pressure is now on them. Game 7, the pressure was on them. Now, were the Warriors comfortable with the pressure of having the best home record in the NBA, Game 7 at home? Did they feel comfortable? Yeah, they felt comfortable. But one thing that a good thing and a bad thing for that team is that they were down 3-1, and they had a long Portland series, and they were down 3-1. And that's part of the journey. Like the NBA championship is not won in the finals. The NBA championship could be won in the first round, in the second round, in the third round. We had kind of cruised through, and that was negative for us because when we got to the intensity of the finals, you saw the first 2 games, we got our head beat in. But for them, because they had a tough series against OKC, they had a tough series against Portland, guys were injured, banged up, so that by the time they got to the finals, the longer the finals went, the more banged up they were. Now, that's not an excuse for them. It's just more of like, well, you guys had to do more to get to where you were. And so the longer it went, the harder it was.
Going into Game 7, how nervous are you? Are you sleeping?
No one's sleeping. No one's sleeping because you look at the time change, the travel, like your energy. And, you know, I'm on so many Red Bulls and 5-hour energies and Assault, which was my pre-workout. You're on so much of that. Like I had to take a Tylenol PM at like 4 a.m. just to calm, because it's the most adrenaline you'll ever be on. Plus you come back from like a West Coast trip, so your clock is messed up. No one's sleeping. No, we were on a text chain at like 3 a.m, guys trying to relax. So no, there was no sleep before. You're on fumes and energy drinks at this point in time.
Yeah, like Kyrie said after the game, he's like, I didn't sleep at all. And then he said he didn't get comfortable until like the second quarter. Did you have anything similar where it took you a little bit to get comfortable?
In Game 7?
Yep.
You know what? It took a little bit, but for the most part, it was very, very difficult. Game 7, you understood. Game 7 was the hardest one. It was the closest game of all the games. Yep. The reason why it was difficult was because everyone was kind of feeling each other out, right? No one was going for a knockout punch. No one was doing anything crazy. We'd actually done a really good job on them, except for the last 2 minutes of the first half. Now, you don't want to go in down at halftime, and the halftime speech was intense. You don't want to go down in at halftime and then come out to that crowd, and then all of a sudden a 2-minute burst and you're down 15, you're down
Yep.
16. You didn't
Yep.
want that. So it was there was never a moment to kind of catch your breath. You just had to come out. And then JR had that great moment in that third quarter.
But was there anything different? Like the game plan, did that change during Game 7 at all, or was it kind of the same thing?
The game plan stayed the exact same after Game 1 and 2. After
Okay.
Game 1 and 2, the game plan was the exact same. Steph and Klay, if you're guarding them, you stay on them the whole possession unless they come together.
Okay.
If they come together, then you can switch. But if you're guarding, if I had Steph in transition, then I was with Steph no matter what, right? And that's versus us trying to switch everything, which killed us in Game 1 and 2.
Now, at the end of the game, when there's that 4 minutes of no one able to score a basket, how shocked are you? Like, what is that like? Are you at a certain point, are you thinking, wow, the person that scores first might be the one that wins here?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking the person that scores first is not necessarily win, but then all of a sudden you have the strategic advantage, right? Like the first person that punches, the next person's going to have a counter punch. And if you miss that counter punch, excuse me, if you miss that counter punch, then you're going to have to be in a position to answer again. Because if let's say they score first, and then you miss your next shot, then you come down and they score again. Now you have even more pressure, and you're like, time was running out. There wasn't that many opportunities. There wasn't that many possessions left. And so like, even in our head, like with 3 minutes to go, we know a max as a player, you have like 7 more possessions max.
Yeah.
You know, like just without turnovers, you have 5 or 6 possessions left. So like, you're running out of time. So you know that you can't allow for them to score 2 possessions without you scoring in one of those possessions. So we knew that it was about to be a moment.
You said it was an intense halftime, like in the locker room. What was said?
T-Lue kind of went at Bron. And then went back into the coach's room. And then Bron was pissed off. Was like, man, because Bron was in a very good vibe. I think Bron the whole time had a great vibe about him. This whole time, he had never lost his cool, never been emotional, he was just like the ultimate leader, right? If there was any kind of like doubts or moments, like we never saw them. That was the first time that he was mad that T-Lue kind of said, I need more from you. T-Lue was like, yo, I need more for you. And Bron was like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, I just need more. It's not enough. I need more. And so then T-Lue went into this thing, and Bron was like, man, messing with my vibe, man. I've been cool. And all of a sudden you're just like, oh, geez, here because we were down. Going into halftime. So you come out and you're like, man, last thing you want is Bron to be worried about what T-Lue talking about. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously T-Lue, who is a master motivator, got that 1 or 2 more percentage points from him. That's what that was needed. But we were all kind of looking around like, yo, this is the first time in the whole postseason that Bron's kind of had an attitude. He felt like he had a good grasp, and T-Lue kept pushing him, trying to get more.
Yeah. All right. I know you've seen this play 1,000 times. I'm going to let you kind of take it away and walk me through everything that you're thinking here. You see Kyrie go up, take the shot, miss.
I'm not on the court, and I'm sitting down. I see the 2-on-1. I've been a 2-on-1 guy my entire career. So I'm thinking it's either going to be a foul or a bucket. That's the only thing that's going to happen, right? I'm hoping that if it's a foul, it's Andre, who's not a great free throw shooter, but you're seeing it in real time. And then all of a sudden you just see a blur go across the screen. And that's what it was. It was just a blur past me. And it was, you can see me sitting down, and I'm like, wait. And then I see Bron come in late. And once he gets that block, I knew we'd just taken away an opportunity from them. So now it was back on our chance to have an opportunity to score and do something. And it was like, even Andre, I work out with Andre during the summer, and Andre was like, dude, there was nowhere for me to go. If I would have tried to reverse it, he had both arms on both sides. He was going to block either side of it. And so, again, unsung hero. J.R. Smith doesn't foul there. That would have been a great opportunity. Because if you foul Andre knows I love him, Arizona guy. He's not a great free throw shooter. You put pressure on Andre to knock down free throws. So it wouldn't have been a bad foul. It wouldn't have been a bad foul to rack up Andre right there.
Yeah.
And so for him to not foul, I don't know if he knew Bron was coming, because right there, he couldn't see Bron, right?
Yeah.
And so you just look at that moment like, oh, okay, let's see what happens. So it was, again, a great play by JR, even better play by Bron. But all I saw was a blur, and that was it.
When you ask LeBron, how the hell did you do that? What does he say?
I've never asked him.
You've never asked him?
I've never asked him. Never asked him.
Okay.
Because that's not a comment. That's like, how did you do that? Or what? No, we've seen chase down blocks from him a million times. This is one thing that I want to let people know about the impressiveness. Look where his head is. LeBron James has played every single minute of every single game. This is game 7, the last possible game that you can play of the NBA season. And with 2 minutes to go, this man's athleticism, quickness, he sprints that fast, jumps that high to get that block. Like that level of conditioning, that level of focus, that's something that hasn't been achieved by many. Kobe, MJ, Magic. Not many guys in NBA history have ever been able to achieve that type of focus and conditioning to make a play like that at the end of the season, last game.
Is LeBron telling T. Lue here, hey, give Kyrie this next shot?
I think he was trying to say, let's get him on Steph and then let him go to work. Bron is the ultimate teammate in that sense. Like, he always tries to make the right play. He is playing chess at all times. And if he's looking at, there's not a lack of greatness. I stand by this. All these people that want to say things. I remember when Michael Jordan passed the ball to Steve Kerr, right? I remember when Michael Jordan passed the ball to Steve Kerr and Steve Kerr telling him, I'm going to be ready. Jordan being, again, another chess player, makes the right play off the double team, knocks it down to Steve Kerr. So Bron, I don't remember what was said in that moment, but it was more of like, hey, if we can get Steph on Kyrie versus Bron going at Andre or going at Draymond, like Bron's got the advantage, but percentage-wise, the advantage is higher if it's Kyrie versus Steph.
Yep. Now Tristan comes out and you come in. What's your first thought?
My first thought is really just transition. The things that are going through my head, like I said, either get in front, get behind, or get out of the way. My thought process is transition, offensive rebound if you get an opportunity. Make sure that you're making yourself available. Make sure you kind of know what's going on, just reading the floor. I'm not thinking last shot's coming to me. I'm not thinking any of that stuff. But I'm thinking make yourself ready. Just be ready.
Yeah. So you see Kyrie get the ball. You don't know what he's going to do, right?
I have no clue. I'm in that, as you see, I end up going to the strong side corner. Bron clears me out because he wanted to be on that side. So they clear me out. And they get this screen. They get the screen. And look, to Steph's credit, Steph steps up. He's trying to show. He steps out. Klay wanted to go over there, but if Klay would have gone, I think Kyrie might have passed it. They clear me out. The whole time I'm thinking to myself, go to the offensive rebound, get back in transition. That shot goes up and I just froze. I'm just watching like, oh my God, he just shot a 3.
Yeah.
And that part was crazy.
And when he shoots it, did it look good immediately? Like, were you like, oh, this is going in?
No, I have no idea. I'm just watching it. I'm watching the flight.
Yeah, I'm looking at you. Yeah, you're just looking
I'm like,
right
you look
there.
at my head start to tilt. I'm looking at the flight of the ball. That's really the only thing that I'm doing. I'm looking at the flight of the ball. Because if that ball comes long, I know I got to take off. If that ball comes my direction, like bounces and goes some way, I'm going to make a play at it. I really wanted to go to the offensive glass, but I just kind of froze.
And you can't even like get hyped in the moment because no timeout was called. And Steph is bringing the ball up the court.
And we've seen him hit half-court shots for 3.
Yeah.
What is a 3-point shot to Steph? That's nothing.
Yeah.
A 3-point shot to Steph is absolutely nothing. And then obviously, this defense.
You take it away.
This defense by Kevin Love was just so amazing. Like, look at this. He's doing everything he can. Now, this part right here, I was a little bit, he should have denied Steph back. He should have denied Steph back. So he put himself in a position. And even that, that Steph didn't miss that by much, and that's not a great shot.
Did you think about doubling, like in that moment?
No. You can't double them. You can't because you just know that they are so good. They're so good And I'm not going to leave Andre, the reigning finals MVP, right? You just have to have belief and faith in your teammate. Now, when Kyrie takes the ball and starts to go, I'm like, Kyrie, where are you going? Slow down.
Yeah. And then he luckily got I'm lucky, and then you guys called timeout. Yeah. But there's this play here, and whenever I watch it, I think, I wish LeBron finished this dunk. Do you have the same feeling?
Yeah, I wish he would have finished the dunk. This was a great foul by Draymond. But you see, I'm the first person over to Bron when he falls down because he starts grabbing his wrist because the way he landed. And I'm like, oh my God, please, dude, what are you doing? Like, he's grabbing his right wrist. And so in my head, I'm like, okay, dude, I know that you're borderline left-handed. If you got to shoot left-handed, then shoot it left-handed, but just make one. Yeah. Right. So I'm over there. I'm the first one too. I'm just like hyping him up. Like, you're all right. Yeah. You're all right, big fella. You're all right. It's almost
What did
over.
he say? Did you think he broke his wrist?
Yeah. The way he grabbed his wrist, because if you watch it, he lands on it so funny.
Yeah.
He lands on it and embraces it. And I've torn the ligaments in my left wrist off a similar play to that. So when you see him, he's in pain. And this is not him trying to draw. Like he literally, his wrist was hurting him there. But I was just pure hype man there.
Mm-hmm. And what did he say? Did he say like something was off or?
No. He was like, man, my wrist. I'm like, you're fine. You're okay. It wasn't anything like you see him pain. And it was like, I was like, you're fine, big fella. Get your butt up. Let's go. Just give me one.
And then he did. But when he misses the first one, you're like, oh no.
At that moment, you still have a 3-point cushion. Maybe we get into a position where we're fouling and it becomes a free throw game. And Kyrie is one of the great free throw shooters in postseason history. So I'm still feeling in control, right? If this becomes a free throw game, that's fine, right? But, just got to knock down one.
And he did. And then once he hits that one, though, is it kind of not a relief, but you're like, okay, we would have to screw this up if we lose?
No, I'm not thinking about screwing anything up. I'm just thinking like, hey, we got like this again. This is the greatest regular. Now, this play is such a unique play, right? So let me take you through this very, very last play that they run.
Perfect.
So no game was close in the NBA Finals, right? So what we all do every single at the end of practice, you go through the other team's need plays. You go through their need plays. Like this is the play that they're going to run to get a shot. This is the play they run if they need a 2, if they need a 3.
Yep.
So since no game was close at all, no one ever got to a need shot. They never got to a last second need shot. So when they get into that lineup, we all realize, they're about to run the play that we all know. Because this is the first time that they're having to do it. So instead of that, because let's say that they needed a shot in game 3, they would have ran this play in game 3. So they would have had a different play in game 7. Yeah. But so this was the first opportunity that they had to run their need play. So in that moment, I get out of the game. They put Shump in the game because that's who we had practiced with in the last play. So I'm like, oh, wait, we know what they're about to run. We know what they're about to run. And so that was the first moment where I started to feel like, oh, wait, this thing might be over.
What was the biggest thing you learned from the series?
I'll take it back. And this is what I tell all players. When I lost to the Spurs in the NBA Finals, Tim Duncan was a monster. Tony Parker played great. But it was the Bruce Bowens, the Speedy Claxtons, the Steve Kerrs. Those were the guys that really gave them that extra edge, and it was the 7, 8, 9, 10 guys. Those were the guys that really kind of changed it. So going into this finals, I realized that I was a 7, 8, 9, 10 guy. So I learned in 2002 that 7, 8, 9 are big. So I was super, super focused. Like, hey, I'm going to have an opportunity to make an impact. Obviously, Kevin Love with his concussion, and then us kind of changing it. But I was so locked in. So I tell every player, dude, 7, 8, 9, 10, you're going to have an opportunity to make an impact in this finals. It's a matter of whether or not you're ready and focused. Stars win it, but 7, 8, 9, 10 give you the edge.
Richard, dude, you explained everything in great detail. I really appreciate you coming on. I want to do this again with all of your highlights because I grew up watching you play. I'm 25. Like my childhood is watching the New Jersey Nets, that 06 Heat team. I grew up in Miami. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would love to just go through your highlights as well next time. All right.
Oh, man, dude, we can do whatever you want. I would love
Sure.
to, man.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.